All right, YouTube, what's going on? It's your homie Vinny. We're back. Hope everybody's having a good week. Hope you weenies are doing all right. We're gonna address this this whole Tarkov thing. It's been a couple weeks since the whole the video came out. BSG's been on Twitter posting ban waves, and they've been on Reddit doing AMAs, which we covered in a previous video. I'll stick that in the end of this video in case you want to take a look at it, because we covered that as well. But really, there's been some changes, getting rid of barter, stuff like that. That's it, really. So I figured, you know, I haven't really seen any comparisons made to any other similar games that had the same problem. So today what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at how Jaeger, the creators of The Cycle Frontier, tackled their cheating problem. Because similar game to Tarkov, The Cycle Frontier, when it first came out in closed beta and Season 1, the cheating problem was absolutely insane. Like, if not as bad as Tarkov, like real freaking close. So it was pretty bad, and I actually stopped playing the cycle completely for a while, you know, casually, sure, but not main in it anymore, because of that. So now that the whole Tarkov thing has happened and the cycle has made huge strides with addressing cheaters in their game, let's take a look and see how they did it. So today we got a little interview that happened between Claymore Plays, another YouTuber, and Toast, the community manager, anti-cheat dev at Jaeger. He's gonna kind of go through, I'll cover over some of the questions, I'll break it down, we'll go through what they did, and let's see if we can maybe take a page out of Jaeger and the Cycle Frontiers playbook here and push some ideas forward to Nikita and BSG on what they could potentially do. I'd love to hear from you guys as well, what you think of what they've done in the Cycle Frontier. If you guys play it, if you don't, if you've, you know, laid off Tarkov, let me know what you think in the comments, because I'd love to get some ideas floating around the community here, and maybe Nikita will pick up on some. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna flip you guys around, and we'll kind of listen in. I'll give you an idea of what questions are being asked, and then, yeah, we'll hit some talking points, and we'll see. Maybe it's viable for Tarkov, maybe it's not, maybe it's a good idea. And yeah, let's just, let's get to it. Let me flip you guys around. All right, so the beginning of this video here is more or less just an intro. So this is Claymore Plays on the left. You got Toast, the Jaeger community manager, anti-cheat dev extravaganza over here. The man's a machine. You know, mind you, there's a team of people behind him. I questioned if BSG has an anti-cheat community manager. Let's be real, they do not, nor do they have a team behind that man. So this is a huge step that Jaeger's made here. So the first thing that they're doing is they're just kind of discussing how they got started, what the whole cheating problem was like. So I'm gonna let you guys hear some of this.
Even one of the biggest issues of the game at all. So when we came into this game, I guess Jaeger was a bit unprepared for just how much of an incentive there would be for cheaters to want to cheat in this kind of game. Obviously you can see it in other games in the genre like Tarkov as well. It's always had a back and forth battle with cheaters, but to some extent we hadn't properly prepared for getting that kind of wave. So as soon as CP2 happened and Season 1 happened.
So let's dig into this, shall we? Just quick little thing. These Jaeger, BSG, these are some of the first people to jump into the genre. So, you know, it would have really helped if one looked at the other when developing their game and the cheater problem. But of course, nobody did that. They all just went in blind, which I respect, but now we know ahead of time, any other game that jumps into this genre, cheaters are coming. Do something about it from the beginning.
From that point on, it was trying to expand the team as fast as possible, and put as much work in as we could. You know, hiring me and hiring a few other people and moving engineers from other teams to the anti-cheat team. It's just doing everything we could to get the problem solved as quickly as possible. But unfortunately, with any development, it doesn't happen overnight, which is why it took us pretty much the entirety of season 1 to get a hold of it.
So I like the honesty here. He's he's honest and straight up about it being not an instant thing, which, let's be real, we all know that's going to be a back and forth battle with cheaters, but how bad Jaeger had it, about the same as Tarkov right now. For how quick they did it, like their seasons are what, like 3-4 months between season 1 and season 2 was phenomenal, honestly. Like, they did a great job, which just goes to show 3 to 4 months, massive improvement. And we've had BSG, knowing how bad the situation has been in their game for what, 5 years? Like, when did the anti-cheat come in? 2019? They just got BattleEye? Like, BSG, come on now. 3 or 4 months. You hear that, Nikita? 3 or 4 months for an entire turnaround. So here's our next point here. The question that we're proposing to Toast here, or sorry, Claymore's proposing, is what was your workflow like during season 1 moving into season 2? What did you do to improve the anti-cheat?
So I think you could see this the most. So season 2, but one of our biggest priorities with season 1 was trying to find ways to slow down cheaters after they'd already been banned. The issue we were having the most in season 1 wasn't that we weren't banning cheaters. Obviously, some would slip by for longer than we'd like, but it was that you'd ban a cheater, they'd make a new Steam account or whatever, and they'd be back in the game in like 30 minutes. And other than the items they lost on that account, they didn't really lose much. So our biggest incentive was trying to find a way to make that process more tedious and make it more frustrating for the cheater, or make it more difficult for the cheater to keep getting back into the game over and over again. Unfortunately, with the current technology, a lot of people say things like just hardware ID ban or just do XYZ type of ban. With the way technology is currently, it's so much easier to circumvent a ban than it is to ban.
Yeah.
Every ban method is very, very easy to circumvent, unfortunately, for people who know what they're doing, at least. So it didn't really matter what kind of ban we threw at them. The issue was that they could just spoof it and get right back into the game in like 30 minutes, which obviously is a huge issue.
So this is a huge issue, right? It's one that BSG is going to face too, but not maybe nearly as much, because the Cycle Frontier is free to play. And the way they addressed this actually was awesome. So we're going to hear about that. And this idea has sort of been thrown around in the Tarkov community, and it usually gets shoved to the side. But the way that Jaeger implemented this was, it was very smart and very well done. The way that they kind of protect their core player base here in the middle with these layers around them, it's big brain. And this would be phenomenal for Tarkov. Not only like, you know, we're not saying like let's get verified separate servers that you need some like CS:GO style $10 a month membership to play on or something, but come up with a way that flags people that have had multiple accounts and separate those accounts from people that have had, you know, 1 or 2 accounts and have been 3,000-4,000 hours, whatever it is. First time account, whatever. There's got to be a way to separate that, right? Okay, guys, so here's our next talking point here. Cheater compensation. Now, I'm going to let Toast explain this one and how they went about this, because there's unique challenges in a game like Tarkov and The Cycle when it comes to this kind of thing. But keep in mind, Tarkov and The Cycle are similar in some ways. Like, you know, Tarkov's loot pool is going to be bigger with junk items and weapon customization, stuff like that. but they both share the extraction looter shooter. They both have insurance systems. And the cycle has figured out how to navigate both of these and do this in a fair way so that if you die to a cheater, you don't feel so bad losing your loot because there's a very good chance you're getting it back whether it's insured or not. So let's hear what Toast says here.
I'm gonna say it, but
Fair enough. Yeah, that's fine.
But yeah, one of our lead designers proposed the idea. To my knowledge, I think you're right. I don't think other games have done anything like that, at least for cheaters. I think part of the fear is it does draw more attention to the cheating, but for a game like ours where the cheating incentive is so high that it's almost inevitable that cheaters will show up, but B, the deaths in our game don't feel good, and if you die to a cheater and lose your good gear, that's really rough. So that was kind of our incentive to make the system was
and keep in mind, right, this is something that BSG and Tarkov share in common with Jaeger and The Cycle. Dying in their games does not feel good. It doesn't feel terrible when, you know, you're in whatever, a 1v2 nice gun, or even a 1v1 nice gunfight, y'all are shooting at each other, and, you know, it's, you have a good fight, you die, whatever, you lose your stuff, it's like, got outplayed, whatever. But in Tarkov, when you can't tell, you know, you're holding an angle and all of a sudden you die, and there's no man there. Was it desync? Was it a cheater? Who freaking knows? So something like this cheater compensation thing, keep in mind here, that's what we're talking about. Something like this would make you feel a little bit better, right? Because there's always that, you know, okay, that guy's cheating, or there's a 90% chance that this guy's cheating and he gets banned. You got your stuff back.
Essentially, in the current state of gaming, it's not really possible to eliminate cheaters entirely. I cannot think of a single FPS game on the market that doesn't at least occasionally have cheaters. And so our incentive, I suppose, was for the inevitability when that does happen, give players a bit of a kickback so that it, you know, it's probably still going to sting, but it's not going to be like this whole night ruining event. You'll be like, okay, at least I'll get those guns and stuff back when that cheater gets banned. So that was essentially our idea, was to try to find a way to make the pain of dying to a cheater just sting a little bit less, because it can be pretty rough even dying to just a single cheater in our game, versus if you die to a cheater in COD, you're like, that's annoying, but I'll leave and go next lobby. It's like, doesn't really matter. But in our game, not the case. It's like, okay, that sucks. That just ruined my whole night.
Yeah.
It makes a good point, right? Similar in Tarkov, you die a salty death or someone that's sus, you're like, man, what's stopping the next raid from being like this? Maybe you play something different, maybe you die again, and it gets worse. You know, it's just not a fun game to die in. So I appreciate them making this move, and I really think Tarkov should consider something like this, and even if it's temporary until they get cheaters under control, which let's be real. Let's hope that this happens soon. And we all know what Nikita's like, you know, soon TM here. But Nikita, really, man, you got to push this one. Like, you're killing us.
It's not straightforward.
Okay, there you go.
It's essentially the issue is, especially with our game, we have quite a bit of junk items, you know, crafting materials and stuff. The issue was finding a way to track all of this data, because we can't only track it for when cheaters show up. We have to track every single player across the entire game. Finding a way to track all of this data and save it for an extended period of time long enough to catch when a cheater gets banned. That was pretty difficult, essentially finding a compromise, because we can't track everything and we can't save it forever. So finding a middle ground that wouldn't overload our system but can still let us track all these items and give them back to players. That was the biggest challenge. Especially, our game wasn't built. There's some games, Albion Online is a game I respect a lot for this. They built their inventory system basically from the ground up when they worked on the game. they can track things probably better than any game I can think of. But our game wasn't built with that in mind. We never predicted having to do something like this. So our inventory system wasn't set up in the right way for us to track like everything. So we had to find a way to compromise so that we didn't overload our data limits that we had, which are kind of it's not an issue with like server space, but it's an issue with the actual backend code and the hosting service we use. So yeah, that was the whole finding compromise.
Okay, so right, like I said, tracking all the items, number one problem, and storing the data from the tracked items. And we all know notoriously BSG is terrible with Tarkov and netcode. So let's be real, the more stuff they track, the worse the desyncs gonna get. And it's already pretty bad. So, you know, track main things, Nikita, main things. Consider this one. This is a good idea. It's been proven in the Cycle Frontier. It's been working for months now. It's great. It works. I've gotten plenty, well, not plenty because there's not that many cheaters anymore, but I've gotten pretty much all my stuff back from people I've reported that got banned. And it's great. It's great knowing, hey, that guy got banned. I know that because I got my stuff back, and I got my stuff back. Screw that guy, and I got my stuff back. Win-win, right? Okay, here we go. So I'm gonna let them talk on this one, but the question of going in is what Claymore has asked here. Generally, I'm just trying to speed this up a little bit, guys. This is a 46-minute interview, so I'm trying to keep the video short for you guys. So essentially what's been asked here is, it's on the screen, but what are the current priorities in managing the anti-cheat, and what other general sort of maintenance or, you know, stuff on the back end coding servers are you guys maintaining or doing to keep cheaters at bay and the game running smoothly while doing all of this?
I'll say what got us to the quality we saw in season 2.
Yeah.
And ultimately that was a combo of a few things. It was working on the trusted status system, which allows us to, that was our solution, I guess, to the alt account issue I was talking about earlier. Essentially, that was our way to keep cheaters who keep spamming these alt accounts on Steam or whatever, and make it much more difficult for them to actually get to the core player base, the people who, you know, only have one account and are dedicated to the game and play other games, and it's not just some random brand new level 0 Steam account. And that honestly, that alone was pretty huge. That means that even if cheaters get into the game, they can't usually reach the core player base, and they end up playing a lot more with other cheaters or things like that. And then the other thing we worked on was obviously back on anti-cheat improvements to try to ban cheaters faster, and then also working with another studio, Bifron, to get a proactive anti-cheat solution called Hyperion for the game. That made a pretty solid impact too. It didn't necessarily stop cheaters, but it made the development of cheats much more annoying. And we actually saw quite a few big cheat developers who've been developing cheats in our game for months just give up and stop doing it, and they moved on to other games like Tarkov and stuff because they just didn't. It was too annoying every time their cheats would break, and they just decided to move on to easier projects, which is great for us. So both of those things combined were really the biggest impact, and those are still holding up today. That's still really keeping things at bay. Essentially, almost every anti-cheat would be reactive, which is essentially trying to find cheaters and ban them. The idea behind stuff like Bifron, and there's a few other companies doing similar things, is to essentially make the actual creation of the cheats more difficult, which is why you call it proactive. Before people are even cheating, you're making just the process of starting quite a bit harder. It causes games to crash and stuff like that when you try to modify them, which is obviously really annoying when you're trying to make cheats. So yeah, that's kind of the idea behind it. And obviously, if we just had that, as soon as people made cheats, they'd be able to run rampant. So having both is pretty crucial.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Looking at you, Tarkov.
Okay, so we're gonna touch on this a little bit. Keep in mind, the Cycle, Frontier, and Jaeger, and Escape from Tarkov and BSG are using the same core anti-cheat of BattlEye, right? So this just proves this is something that Tarkov could implement, right? This is something that Jaeger didn't start out with a combination of. They started with BattlEye, and now they've added other methods of anti-cheat and proactive, we'll call it, as Toast calls it, anti-cheat, to sort of create layers for cheaters and cheat developers to go through. Similar to what you would call the Swiss cheese method, right? You have all these different layers, and as one gets through one layer, it gets stopped by the next layer. And being proactive about it is huge. Tarkov could benefit from this massively. Nikita, if you ever see this, you should be looking into stuff like Bifron and Hyperion, these proactive anti-cheats that make the development of cheats harder. Just a quick rundown, something like Bifron, what it does is when people are trying to develop cheats for the game and test them, the game is just constantly crashing. This is costing cheat developers time, which in turn is costing them money. So it doesn't make sense to keep trying developing cheats for the Cycle Frontier. Let's go somewhere that doesn't have this proactive anti-cheat, and it's easier to make the cheats and make the money. This was huge for the Cycle Frontier, right? In combination with BattlEye, because let's be real, they've had BattlEye for forever. Unlike Tarkov, who only added it like 5 years ago, or 4 years ago now, maybe 3.5. The Cycle was smart enough to go from the beginning. However, like in Tarkov, BattlEye is not enough. So the Cycle Frontier took action. They found other anti-cheat companies, studios, whatever you want to call it, programs that will run alongside with BattlEye to create these layers to protect the core player base and separate the cheaters that do get through into different areas so they don't necessarily reach the core player base. So people like you and I, when we're running around willy-nilly with our bulldogs, trying to tap people at point blank, of course, we're not getting murdered by El Chapo over there with his full auto sniper rifle floating in the air. They're fighting each other on some other server. This would be huge. This also plays into the verified server thing that the Cycle Frontier and Jaeger do, which, let's be real, if Tarkov could implement something like this, 100%, I'd pay $5 a month to play Tarkov on verified servers away from cheaters. Eventually, if they leave the game the way it is, the cheaters are going to get into the verified servers and cheat and then just make a new account. But for a while, it would probably be pretty good. And, who wants to cheat, spend $5, get banned, make another account, which you also have to buy on Tarkov, then spend the other $5 to go back into the verified server to get banned again. It doesn't make sense. It would be a huge sort of barrier between us core player base and keeping cheaters on just random silly servers. So the next question here that Claymore is asking Toast is what they're currently working on with anti-cheat, and he slipped in a little side question of, trying to get some season 3 info. Test server was live already. You can go check it out. We got a good idea of what's coming. I'm assuming it's not all in there, but he's not going to leak anything, I don't think. But let's hear it. Let's see if he reveals what they're working on.
Yeah, it's a little hard to talk about.
Yep.
As I've said many times, I
Soon TM.
try not to give too many details because I don't like to give things out that might help cheaters know how to prepare or know what to avoid. But to give general overview, we're still working on more detections. I guess something else to get out of the way is my team, the NIT team, doesn't usually focus on season cadence. With season 2, it happened to line up that the trusted system came out pretty much right when season 2 came out. But really, as soon as my team has something ready, we just will push it out in the next patch. Generally, with every update, we're usually making tweaks and changes to the existing things or adding new detections, which is something we're going to keep working on going forward. Never going to stop. Otherwise, we were looking into... I can't say who it is. We have been we have been in the talks with other companies to potentially add supplemental anti-cheat stuff. That's about all I want to say, honestly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, we're reaching out to other companies to see what's on the market right now. We're trying to stay ahead of the curve at this point. I think things are pretty under control right now, but we don't want to get lazy. So we're keeping an eye out for what's on the market and trying to stay ahead of the curve just to keep it so that cheaters don't want to touch our game. Just keeping things as annoying as possible so that they'll move on to the other games on the market, because at the end of the day, cheaters are developers too, and they have limited resources. And if this game's super obnoxious to cheat in, they might just not bother, which is our goal.
They already have BattlEye and Bifron working for them, and they're looking into multiple other anti-cheat programs and companies to help them along the way. And we have BSG over here thinking BattlEye is cutting it. Nikita, please, for the love of God and all of us that love the game of Tarkov, please do something like this. Please look into other companies, get a better BattlEye package, lower the desync, like better servers or something, make it easier to observe and catch cheaters with less desync for sure. But please, for the love of God, look into some of these other companies, proactive anti-cheats like Bifron, Hyperion, ways to make it difficult for people to develop the cheat, ways to make it difficult for people to create continuous accounts on the same device, popping out accounts and cheating again. If Jaeger can do it in 3 to 4 months, you guys can do it. You just need to actually do something, Nikita. Okay, so our next question here is a two-parter, and we'll see if he addresses both, but it's what made them pick a certain anti-cheat over another option. So what made them go with, say, BattlEye or Hyperion or Bifron over, EAC or whatever the heck it is, and what's the most difficult hacks to catch and deal with. I have a feeling that the answer to the latter question there, the latter question, the second one, the most difficult hacks is probably going to be like aimbot and stuff like that, because you're not actually really injecting anything crazy into the game, if you will. They're more or less just making adjustments with actual movement in the game to track onto people. So it's very hard to catch, right? I think that's what it's going to be, but let's just see.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to BattlEye, there's really not a whole lot of choice right now in those reactive anti-cheats. I think the 3 big ones would be Punkbuster, Easy Anti-Cheat, and BattlEye right now that are publicly, well, maybe not publicly, but dev studios like us can buy them. And for us, we worked with a lot of them personally. We found that BattlEye was really nice to work with. They were very cooperative. They would help us out when we had issues. And we also found that they haven't had any issues with things like false positives, and they've been very good at just doing what they do. I mean, it's been very easy for us to work with them, honestly. Uh, they update their stuff, they catch new cheats, and we do our thing, and it just works very smoothly. We found, I mean, the simple answer is we just found they work the best for what we were looking for. But
Yeah.
the other ones are honestly pretty good too. They're all kind of neck and neck right now. There's been points in the past where one is clearly the best, but I think right now they all have their own pros and cons. This isn't actually something that is just true for our game, but it's true for pretty much every FPS game on the market. There's essentially different levels to how invasive a cheat is to the game, and you have these very surface level hacks that essentially all they do is they modify inputs. They aren't injecting anything into the game itself. The most common ones you'd see doing that would be ESPs, seeing through walls, and aimbots. Essentially, all an aimbot is you're reading data getting sent to the client from the game, and you're interpreting that, and then you're sending inputs, just normal mouse inputs, back to the game to, modify the aim and do what you want. I think a lot of people think those hacks are blatant and super easy to detect, but because they don't modify the game itself in any way, and they're just doing normal inputs, that stuff can be really hard to detect. And that's true for every game. That's why almost always the most common hacks you'll see in any FPS game will be those two things, ESP and aimbot. It's a tough, the current technology, it's tough to detect that kind of thing, because a lot of anti-cheat detections currently, they look for unnatural behaviors, like the game doing something it shouldn't, or the game being modified in some way, or the client reading something that it shouldn't have access to. But those two hacks are able to avoid all of that and just use natural inputs to do what they do. So they can be very hard to detect.
Okay, so that's what I thought. And this brings me back to Tarkov, right? Because one of the more common Tarkov things that I've seen is the whole dual PC thing, where you've got one PC running the game, and then they've got this separate card that they plug in that reads the memory on that PC. So they're reading data going from the game client to the PC before it gets there, getting enemy positions and inputting that, still coming to your PC, right? So you're seeing where the enemies are on the map, or your aim is flicking over to them. And that can be hard to detect, right? Because one, like Toast said, you're inputting natural movements with the mouse, or natural improvements, you could say. And the other one really is you're using a whole separate sort of device to read memory from one and push extra info to the player, which you wouldn't get. And I won't dive too deep into this because, not an anti-cheat dev. I know a little bit because I've been researching it for a few months now. And I know enough to know that you can limit that sort of thing with server and game server authoritative sort of coding, right? By limiting the amount of information that goes from game server to player. So for instance, picture you're in Tarkov in dorms and you're running up to second floor or whatever. If you have all the data, if there's another man on second floor in dorms and you're running on first floor and your game is getting the data saying, hey, there's a second player on the second floor in dorms, and you can't see him because your game is, you're hearing the sound, but you're not on second floor. So why would you see him, right? And I think this is something that Tarkov could do that would probably not only improve desync, but make it a lot harder to cheat, right? Because you can't read the data if it's not there. So in Tarkov, a lot of stuff, like, yeah, they've moved some stuff to be server authoritative, but there's still a decent amount that's client, right? So what happens is the data's coming through to your PC. Cheaters are reading this data from the memory and pushing themselves that extra bit of data to say, hey, there's your ESP, the guy's above you. If BSG could make it so, say you run into dorms and there's that guy there, but on your end of things, you can hear the guy, but the guy's visually not rendered yet. Until, say, you get halfway up the stairs and now the guy on second floor, no matter where he is, renders. that's a lot of information that you lose to be able to read and push back to the player for that ESP advantage, right? Because it's just simply not there. And this would be huge. And it does cause, you know, it's less data going back and forth, but, you know, the more server authoritative side of things you take, the more lag and latency you introduce into the game. So there's a balance, right? But it's something that I think BSG could work on quite a bit. And, you know, maybe even just say, instead of having all the players on the map render at the same time for the guy that's way in the back left corner, maybe the people only on this half of the map render because that's all the view distance is. And then, you know, as people come into view distance, you start to get that information. Right now, you spawn into a raid and the cheaters know where every player is and every piece of loot is. And that I think that should be information that's not pushed to the player right away. Now, let me know what you think on that one in the comments, because that's an age-old argument here. But I feel like it's something Tarkov could do a lot better and would probably help the situation a lot. Okay, so I think this is the last question that they're going to ask here, which is, why can't you ask for personal ID or something personal related so it's harder for cheaters to keep creating accounts? You know, they need an ID to do it. So essentially, two-factor authentication, but with personal ID. I'm going to let Toast explain this one. We'll touch on it after and we'll do a little wrap-up.
Team like us tried to pull that sort of card, I don't think it would go over very well.
Yeah.
I think you need people like Riot and Blizzard and those big studios to start pushing that kind of thing before people like us can attempt it. Because I think otherwise people are just going to be like, that's weird. I don't want to give some studio my info like that, which is understandable, honestly. Yeah, it would reduce cheaters, but it would probably also reduce our player count. So yeah, that's a lot more common in South Korea, actually. South Korea has government-issued IDs, and it's actually pretty common in quite a few games to tie the ID to the account. So I think Overwatch was doing that for a while. If you got banned in South Korea, it was tied to your ID, and you pretty much had no way to make an alternate account. So it's certainly something that can happen, but I think in the West especially, it's a pretty unpopular idea.
Okay, guys. Now that the interview's over, I want to know what you guys think in the comments. What's some stuff that Jaeger's done and The Cycle that Nikita, BSG, and Tarkov could learn from? I think there were some great ones in there. I think that there's a lot of work that Nikita has to do with Tarkov. But again, if you look at The Cycle, Frontier, and Jaeger, 3 to 4 months, they turn the entire thing around, right? So we know it's doable as it's been done and is still happening over at Jaeger and The Cycle. So let's touch on a few of the main things here. So number one, cheater compensation. This would be good for Tarkov. I don't care what anybody thinks. This is my opinion. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, but cheater compensation would be huge. It's definitely doable because The Cycle has a similar inventory system to Tarkov, minus, you know, half the customization, we'll say, maybe more. But it's doable. Whether, you know, we can't be tracking all the items in game because obviously we're gonna crush data limits and server capacity with Tarkov and all the items and raids and players. But with the amount of cheaters in the game, there has to be a way to introduce something like this for people like me and you and old Joe Schmo over there who are dunking, you know, whatever, a Saturday into this game and spending 30 minutes in a raid to die to a one tap from dude flying across the map or whatever it is. Guy shooting you through a wall, you're not even moving kind of thing. Obvious cheater. We should get something for that, right? I like that they're doing the whole notification system that Nikita's talked about where, you know, you report this guy, you get a thing saying that he got banned. Yay. One cheater down, he's probably making a new account, which will bring to our next point. but you got to do something to compensate people for the time that they put into your game, dying to the cheaters that you're doing not enough about, right? You owe that to us, at least. What I'm thinking of here is similar to the Cycle's verified server status or verified account status. This has been popped in and out of the Tarkov community a few times, similar to a verified server thing, right? The Cycle is saying that they've created a way to know that, since it's through Steam and it's free to play, if you've downloaded, or not downloaded, but created 6-7 accounts for the Cycle, and they're able to keep those accounts separate from the accounts, you know, like you or me, who have one account, or, you know, maybe you have two, maybe you have an alt, whatever it is. You're playing with your low-level homie or something. They've created a way to keep that sort of player base of legit people separate from 14 account Wing Ding over here, who can't really make his way into this player base because of all the different layers they have in place, right? This idea has been tossed around about Tarkov a couple times I've seen in the community. It's not a terrible idea. I love Tarkov. If they fixed, or at least made huge strides on the desync, I'd be willing to throw money at verified servers. Heck, maybe the verified servers help improve the desync. Either way, say it's $5 a month and you're, you know, dumping your weekend hours into Tarkov. Worth it, right? Worth it, 100%. Nikita, you're fucking slacking, bro. The next thing we want to touch on here. Nikita, this is one that you need to take from the Cycle. Proactive anti-cheat and preventing cheaters from just buying or creating more accounts and cheating again. The Cycle's done it, and they've definitely proven that it works, because you can go play the game right now and I can guarantee you'll run a few raids, no cheaters, no sus people. It works, right? Even Toast, the community manager for the anti-cheat team, said it himself. You see cheat developers moving away from developing cheats for the Cycle because these second and third anti-cheat companies and programs they brought in have made cheats being developed such a pain in the butt, it's just not worth it. And this would be huge for Tarkov, right? If you could ban people and then you introduce, say, something similar to buy from like Jaeger has, where it makes the cheats super annoying to develop, right? You're trying to fix the cheat, the game's crashing every 2 seconds. Every time you want to inject or try something new, it's just crashing and crashing. You're wasting hundreds of hours trying to just get the game to run with the first cheat in it. You move away because it's not practical, right? You're losing money, you're losing time. It's just not worth it. This is something worth looking into. I'm curious to hear opinions on this one, because I think that this would be, if not the biggest, one of the biggest helps for Tarkov. Not only, you know, would it prevent, or at least reduce greatly, the amount of people that get banned and just, you know, go out and buy a hacked account for whatever it is. No idea, to be honest with you. Whatever it costs. But they go out, they buy whatever, the hacked account or stolen account, or they just get a new account and they're back cheating as soon as they pay for it. They spoof a hardware ID ban. Now they've got new motherboard GPU numbers, and boom, they're back in the game. If Jaeger can figure out a way to not prevent this, but at least slow this way the heck down to the point where cheat developers are like, screw this, that's a massive win. Massive win in my books. And we all know that Tarkov is pretty popular now, so Nikita, we know that you can afford something like this, all right? Please, for the sake of the people that play the game and the game's life, please consider adding more anti-cheats to the game. You can have more than one. You can't put all your eggs in one basket when it comes to a game that has this big of an incentive to cheat, right? You can't put all your eggs in a reactive battle eye anti-cheat when cheaters are well and far ahead of you, man. there's no catching up in that situation. If you're always just reacting to the cheaters cheating, when do we get less cheaters? We don't, because we're always reacting to the cheaters cheating. Someone's gonna run into that cheater because the only way we know he's cheating is to let him cheat. So make it harder to make the cheats. Make it harder to use the cheats. Make it so people can't turn off all of their antivirus protection on their Windows or whatever computer and play the game. At least add something in there. Do something. Look into Bifron, look into Hyperion. You know, there's a couple out there. I'm not going to go into this huge list of them because there's a couple. But Nikita, you got options, man. Add something. We know it can work with BattlEye because the Cycle's doing it currently and they're gonna keep doing it, and they've done it for the last 3 or 4 months, running more than one anti-cheat. When you have a game that's as big as Tarkov and has that big of an incentive to cheat in it, you need to do something like this. This should be the standard for this kind of game, right? Reactive anti-cheat, preventative anti-cheat, or proactive anti-cheat. You have to have reactive for sure, that has to be there, but you also need something to prevent people from cheating or getting back into cheat and make it harder for people to develop cheats. These things will help massively, okay? Massively. Nikita, please do something. Gotta do something. It's getting ridiculous. Now, I want to say we're hard on you guys. We gotta be, man, because look, it took this long for us to get you to do something. And there's still way more on the table for you guys to pick up, right? We need to keep pushing BSG to do this stuff because that's the only way they're gonna do it. I guarantee you, if GOAT never made the video and nobody started getting this huge uproar, they would have released a game just like this, and it would have been Cheater Central. It would have died, you know, a month or 2 after release because it'll just be cheaters, and the legit people will be like, screw this, I'm not gonna play with cheaters. Why should you, right? You paid this much for the game. Why are you gonna spend that much on a game and just sit back and let the devs do nothing about the cheating problem? Like, we spend money on your game. Fix it. It's like, yeah, it might be difficult and time consuming. It's been like 5 years since your game's been in beta. Nobody cares if you take an extra 6 months of not developing anything else but anti-cheat. We don't care. Fix it, man. Guys, I'm sorry for the rant at the end. If you enjoyed the video, or, you know, you got opinions, drop them below in the comment section so I can read, we can discuss, maybe we can get some stuff going, push it, whatever we gotta do, push it to BSG, give them some ideas, get a spark going in Nikita's head, anything, man, anything. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you guys sticking it through. This is a bit of a longer one. Go show Claymore Plays some love. His link's in the description. Smash that like button, and hey, if you enjoyed it, hit subscribe. There's more coming. Hope you weenies all have a good week. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
Just wanna love me like you do. I just wanna love me like you do.